suspense. Nigga, where am I going? Drop the four with my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going? Nigga, I'm in deep like the ocean. I've been in my bag, everybody around me, I'm ghosting. Where am I going? Drop the four in my cup, now I'm floating. I can't feel a thing, to be real, I just go through the motions. Where am I going?
We are going to another episode of HardFoul Radio. This is the show that values time and puts God first. Let's get started. So I've been on this for the last couple of weeks now, and that is the media's almost need to have to overcorrect everything they got wrong about the Chiefs last year. Because the Chiefs offense was struggling last year, and a lot of people said, oh, this is the year you knock them off, and they still won the Super Bowl. A lot of media, it feels like, just can't be negative towards the Chiefs today, this entire year, not just today. But today especially, so the news of the day is DeAndre Hopkins traded from the Tennessee Titans to the Kansas City Chiefs. DeAndre Hopkins, I want to be very clear before I say this. DeAndre Hopkins is one of the best receivers of his generation. I believe he still leads the NFL in terms of players who are active, the amount of career receptions. He is going to be a Hall of Fame player. And in his prime, DeAndre Hopkins was absolutely special. If you look at his numbers and really go back and look at the quarterbacks that he's played with, DeAndre Hopkins was special, a stud, no doubt about that, an A1 type of player. The year is 2024 and DeAndre Hopkins is no longer that player. The year is also 2024, and the Kansas City Chiefs are no longer that offense that just because you did plug and play with a receiver, that it automatically means their offense is going to start scoring even more points. I brought this up yesterday. What is the difference between the Kansas City Chiefs and the Pittsburgh Steelers? Maybe that the Chiefs are a better version of what the Steelers are currently. But if I were to tell you that a wide receiver past the age of 30, no longer in his prime, was traded to the Steelers, would we be up in arms? Would it be a huge news story? No. The Kansas City Chiefs, who have been struggling on offense for the better part of a year and a half now, the Kansas City Chiefs who have a quarterback who has more interceptions than touchdowns, the Kansas City Chiefs who have not been explosive in years, just added a past his prime, over 30-year-old wide receiver. And the difference is minimal. And if you're another contender in the AFC, if they're being honest with themselves, now they're not going to give Kansas City bulletin board material, but if they're being honest with themselves, I don't think the Ravens saw this move and they're shook. I don't think the Bills saw this move and they're shook. If you consider the Bengals just because of the nature of having Joe Burrow, I don't believe they saw this move and were shook. DeAndre Hopkins is not moving the needle in 2024, but yet I had to hear all day about how this is going to be a great addition, and he's going to, maybe he's not Rashee Rice, but he's going to fit right in there, and, what Juju did, and he had 100 yards the other week, and he had a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and Sky Moore had a touchdown in the Super Bowl, and now he's just going to automatically improve this offense, because how could you not improve this offense when you have Patrick Mahomes? Well, the reality is you can't improve this offense because this offense has been very poor for the last year and a half. And DeAndre Hopkins, past his prime, again, A1 is prime, one of the best receivers of his generation. He is no longer that, and this Kansas City Chiefs offense is no longer that. And I don't think either of these things are going to fix each other. As well as I saw this narrative going out too, and I want to try my best to dispel this, even though I completely understand why people believe this. I saw a lot of people on the internet going, why would you trade with Kansas City? Why are you continuing to get? We did this with Buffalo. Buffalo was like, people said, why did Buffalo trade? And that's the trade that, during the NFL draft, and that's what got them Xavier Worthy. Why would you trade with Kansas City? Teams just want to see why they're the defending two-time champions. They're the dynasty. Why are you doing any kind of business with them? I understand why fans feel this way, but the reality is, especially if you're the Tennessee Titans and your timeline of being good to great is not on the same timeline as the Kansas City Chiefs, why wouldn't you trade with them in order to get future assets? Why wouldn't you trade with them in order to get some of their draft capital? Because if we believe, and I do believe this, part of the Chiefs' success is also at the general manager position with Brett Veach and how well he's been able to draft defensive players for the Chiefs and keep refilling in this team even post Tyreek Hill leaving. And if you look at that first Super Bowl roster, there's not a whole lot of guys still left there. So Brett Veach's ability to draft and acquire more talent, and he's got to do it relatively cheaply because he's paying Mahomes a bunch of money. Kelsey gets paid. Chris Jones just got paid. Why would I not want to take away from that? If you remember during the Patriots dynasty, Bill used to love trading for draft picks. And while we all know, or at least the last thing we saw was Bill not being a great general manager, the reality is when the Patriots were at their peak, they drafted well, they accumulated more draft picks, and they gave themselves more opportunity. They understood there was a way to do this for a prolonged period of time versus teams like the Rams, and they won a Super Bowl and they kind of went all in. Team like the Bucks, who because they got Brady, they went all in. Bill understood there's a way to do this long term and maintain success. So if you're a team like the Titans or you're another team that, you know, your timeline of being good, and I believe this too even with division. People say don't trade within division. If I'm not on the same timeline as you in division, if you're on the same timeline and we're competing, fine. That's a slightly different argument. But if you don't feel like you're on the same timeline as the Chiefs or whatever team is currently great at the time you're rebuilding, absolutely. Take some of their future draft capital. Oh, well, it's just a 5th-round pick or it's a 4th-round pick if they make the Super Bowl. Look at how many guys are currently contributing in the NFL that are 4th and 5th-round picks. The NFL is not like the NBA or not like Major League Baseball where it's handful of first-round picks truly make a difference year in and year out. The NFL is full of guys who are drafted in 3rd, 4th, 5th, etc., who all make an impact. The Broncos have the most improved defense in the league. They have one first-rounder that's Surtain on their defense. So I don't think, and again, the media's just been talking all day about, oh my gosh, they got DeAndre Hopkins. Chiefs are going to be back. The Chiefs have not been that version. I understand that's how we were introduced to them. We were introduced to the high-flying offense. We were introduced to them scoring all these points. But the reality is that's not who they are anymore. And the addition of a 30-plus-year-old wide receiver, as great as he was in his prime, is not going to be the difference maker. Moving from that, I've said this a lot. You go from cutting edge and innovative to outdated really quick. People that are really smart, really creative, really innovative, and they do all of these things, and they're the first ones to do it. When they are no longer at the forefront of their thinking ability or their physical prowess when it comes to athletes, they become outdated. This also works with styles and the way that we see things. They're called trends. When you have a trend, it is popular in that moment, or it is cool to watch in that moment, but that style does not last. Some styles are forever. We got Jordan shoes, those are forever. And then there's a bunch of trends who are here today, gone tomorrow. And while I don't want to say this trend will be gone anytime soon because there's a bunch of stats to back it up, when the Warriors and Steph Curry really turned into the Warriors and Steph really became Steph and they were shooting all these threes, it was the first time we had really seen that. So it was interesting, it was creative, it was exciting. Now, they've always done this in the All-Star game. All-Star game has always shot a bunch of jumpers, always shot a bunch of threes. Numbers have always been inflated, but it's an All-Star game. Steph and the Warriors made it look cool and appealing, and the style of play was something we enjoyed watching in the regular season because we had never seen it before to that level. If you are over the age of 20, you heard when you were younger Charles Barkley say you can't win a championship off jump shots. And now the Warriors, who had a dynasty through jump shots, the Celtics won a title last year off threes, we know that's no longer true. But that style of play that was exciting and innovative and cool when Steph and the Warriors were doing it, because the first time we had seen it. Did you watch the game last night? And I know Tony's going to kill me for this, and that's fine. I'll eat this. That didn't look like a fun basketball game to watch. 60 3-point shots? Like, that's all-star game type stuff. And we don't have to discuss how bad the all-star game has gotten for the NBA. I think both the Celtics and the Knicks are both, the Celtics for sure, the Knicks, there's an argument, are better than the two teams we saw, both better than the Lakers who we saw in the second game. And the Knicks, you could have an argument they're better than the Timberwolves who we saw in the second game. And that second game with less talent, less good players, less good coaching, was far more entertaining because there was different things that we saw in that game. It wasn't just shoot a three every single possession. It wasn't just kick and drive. It wasn't just pass around the arc until someone has an open three. Like, there were picks, there were back screens, there was these simple things that we recognize as basketball. Now, again, Steph, because of the uniqueness of him, is more of a style that feels like it lasts forever. I don't know if I'll ever get tired of watching Steph Curry shoot. But watching a team put up 63s, that felt like an all-star game. That wasn't enjoyable to watch. And I know statistically, I get it, threes more than two, spacing the floor, pace, that's what the game has become. But that wasn't a good product. And for the NBA, your product and the way it is perceived is going to matter a lot, especially in the beginning of the season, because you had not a lot of headlines and not a lot of people talking about your last NBA champion, the Celtics. Not a lot of people talking about your best players during the offseason. Again, we talked about this yesterday. A lot of the best guys in the NBA, Jokic, Giannis, Embiid, they're not even in America during the offseason. The Olympics got attention. The Olympics got hype, but that's more for the Olympics. The Olympics doesn't really translate to advertisement for the NBA. So, again, the Celtics are a great team. We know that. But that style of game, that trendy look of let's get up 63s, that didn't look like a pleasant game to watch. And there's this line, I've brought this up before too. There's this line as a fan that you realize you're watching guys do stuff that you know you couldn't do. And that's part of the appeal of professional sports. Now, some of us are delusional and think, oh yeah, I could do that. But the reality is, most of us can't do what we're watching on TV, and that's part of why we watch it. I could miss 13 straight threes. And for a while, the Celtics offense, after they got off to that historic start shooting, it just felt like, all right, pass around, everybody takes a shot, and I could go do that. I'm going to go to the gym after this. I could go to 24 hour and I could get up 13 shots and miss. I could get up 63s and just see who hits more. The game of basketball cannot be where it currently stands just set to, oh, it's just whoever makes the most threes win, and it looks like that. At least with the Warriors, KD had a mid-range. Draymond was somewhat involved in the post. There were back screens. There was cuts. There was a lot of motion to the offense. What the Celtics did last night just looked like pass the ball around, shoot a three, make or miss, and we'll live with the result. So, again, I love basketball, love the NBA. Celtics are a great team, not trying to take anything away from them. But that game last night was not good for the eyes. It was not good optically. It was not good for the viewing experience. Even if you were a Celtics fan, fine. You won the game. You made more than threes. Cool. You're going to feel good about that. It was banner night, celebrate. They brought out the big three. All that stuff. All wonderful. But to the people that are not fans of the individual teams, which those are millions and millions of people, especially when you get these primetime national TV games, like it has to look different than that. That can't be what we saw last night. That can't be the future of the NBA. That can't be it. Man, a lot of stuff to talk about today. Got to talk about the World Series. Obviously, I'm not going to be live until Sunday, so we got a World Series Game 1 Friday night. Dodgers, Yankees. Who we're going to start breaking down some of that stuff. You know, who's beneficial for the series to go longer. It is also Wednesday, so we are going to get into our power rankings. Got two new teams this week, and I'm sorry, Bucks fans, I jinxed you. I thought that I was this close to putting the Bucks in my top 10, and they were up 10-0, and I made a comment, and then it just all went to hell afterwards. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. I don't care if the Vikings are 5-0. This is a 1,000% to me. This is a coaching story. This is Kevin O'Connell. This is Brian Flores. This is a really cool story for Sam Darnold, but it's still Sam Darnold. And I'm just not willing to put them much higher than this because I think the 7th best team in the NFL is probably your cap with Sam Darnold. Now, that's still incredible. Everything they've done to Minnesota this year has been absolutely, without question, incredible. But it's Sam Darnold. And with that, we are back. This is HardFoul Radio. So, World Series starts. Game 1 is Friday. There's a lot that's going to go on during this World Series. I almost hope for baseball's sake we run with the... Just because I think this would really put it, just the stupidity of it. Run with the what happens when a star player either doesn't perform and or doesn't deliver in the playoffs. We know this in the NBA. We know this in the NFL. Media members love to say, this guy never won. This guy didn't do it. Except, here's so the story, I think the storyline will be good for the media part of Major League Baseball and getting more people actively involved, wanting to watch, that kind of thing. But Major League Baseball is proof positive why that's one of the dumbest narratives in the world. And especially for Major League Baseball, even more so for the NBA or NFL. Now, in the NBA and NFL, the majority of the reason why most guys struggle in the playoffs is because it's a different kind of game plan. Teams can go all out because it's a winner-take-all game, so anything they have that is unique, exotic, one-of-time, they're going to unleash it. They're going to use all of it. They're going to give you a game plan that you have not seen versus if it's week 10 and you play them and it's a short week, they're going to give you some rather simple looks and hope they just have enough talent and cohesion and chemistry to get them through that game. So you're going to see something different in the NFL, and the same with the NBA. You might see a defense that is harassing you 24/7 in the playoffs that just they can't do on game 51 on a back-to-back. And in baseball, it's even harder. So I was watching the Dodgers. I watched a lot of the Dodger games with my wife. She's a big Dodger fan. And up until the last few games, she's asked me, like, why is Shohei struggling so much? And I said, it's because the amount of specialty pitching that is used in Major League Baseball's playoffs, especially, is different than the regular season. Do we all remember that game he had against the Marlins where he went 6 for 6 and had, like, it felt like 10 home runs and 20 RBIs in a single game? Like, he was just going crazy. He got to see the same pitcher multiple times, and then he saw a position player for the last home run. And when you're playing game 120 or game 79 of a Major League Baseball regular season, you are inclined to have your starter go 5-6 innings, even if they've already given up 4, 5, 6 runs. It is beneficial over the course of a long season. You need that guy to give you innings. You need that guy to give you production, even if they don't quite have it. In the playoffs, that is not the same. It's not necessary. Look at how the Dodgers have handled this whole postseason. Multiple bullpen games. They had a game where Fernando Tatis against the Padres, he didn't see the same pitcher once, or it's the same pitcher consecutive times over the course of 2 games. They went with specialized pitching, used the bullpen, multiple bullpen games because they're down multiple starters. Obviously, no Glasnow, no Kershaw. Like, they're missing a bunch of guys, and they still, and so when you're in the playoffs, that ability to specialize pitching, Aaron Judge and Juan Soto aren't going to see. Aaron Judge hit 50-plus home runs. Juan Soto had a great year. They're not going to see guys who are ready. They're not going to see the same guys 2-3 times. They're just not. And the Dodgers have been pitching like this and playing like this for the last several series, which is how they've made it to the World Series. And so, with that being said, while right now, I think there's far more of an argument for a toss-up. I think you could argue either side, realistically. I think the Yankees have better arms. I think the Dodgers have a better lineup start to finish, or top to bottom. But the reality is this series, you're really going to know how it's going by how many games. The Dodgers don't want to play a 7-game series. Again, multiple bullpen games. They're going to have to rely on that again in the World Series. Versus the Yankees, they want Garrett Cole, I doubt they'll do 3 days rest them, but they want 2 full games of Garrett Cole where he's going 6-7 innings. They want, because they have more arms, they want a longer series. They want pitching to be able to prevail. Yes, they have hitters. We just talked about it. Judge, Soto, Stanton's having a great postseason. But the Dodgers, who have been using all of these specialized arms, been using all of these relievers all throughout the playoffs, not just the World Series, not just the Championship Series, but the Division Series, they've been running these guys in the ground, and relief pitchers are relief pitchers for a reason. They're not meant to throw this many innings in this short amount of time. And so if you're the Dodgers, if you were to tell me this series is over in 4 or 5 games, okay, then I would tell you the Dodgers win. Dodgers World Series champions. If this is a 6, and especially if it's a 7-game series, I would tell you the Yankees win. Now, there's so many star players and there's so many great players in this series. This is going to really make it exciting. When you go Mookie, Ohtani, the way Teoscar Hernandez has been playing, Max Muncy, all these guys on the Dodgers side. Then you go to the Yankees, Judge, Soto, Garrett Cole. So there's going to be guys, individual games are going to be defined by the great players in this series. And that's wonderful for baseball. But the overall feel of this series is it feels like if this were to go 7 games, Yankees win. If this is a 4 or 5 game series, Dodgers win. I would be shocked. Not saying it's impossible because, again, we have a bunch of great players. It's not impossible. But if you were to tell me Dodgers in 7 is an incredibly unlikely outcome versus this, and for the same way about Yankees in 4 or Yankees in 5. The Yankees, because they have more healthy pitchers, they have more healthy arms, they want this series to go much longer because they're going to wear out all these guys. You know, the Dodgers are going to have to do, again, probably a bullpen in game 3. They're going to want in game 3, the Yankees, to have all those guys not just come in and pitch their inning or their inning in a third, but they're going to want them to throw extensive pitches because they know they're going to have to see them again, and you're waiting for the eventual breakdown factor that comes with relief pitchers pitching this much. So again, I think it's a toss-up as far as overall series. Both teams have stars. Both teams are incredibly stacked, but the flow of the series is going to be in the amount of games that this series goes and is played. And the more games favors the Yankees, less games favors the Dodgers. Going back to the NFL, Will wasn't able to join us. I'm hoping he's going to be able to join us on Sunday. But I still wanted this in there, which is, I think a lot of people, we talked about September MVP race being stupid. Please go check out that video. It's doing well. Please go keep clicking on it. Appreciate you guys. But we talked about a September MVP was stupid. And most awards are dumb if you take that short amount, like for the NFL, like 3-4 games saying, well, he's the MVP right now. You're not even technically now, you're not even 25% of the way done with the season. It'd be dumb to crown a baseball MVP 40 games in. It'd be dumb to crown a basketball MVP 20 games in. But the media needs things to talk about. The Rookie of the Year race has now shifted into phase 2. So phase 1 were all the people who wanted to get out there immediately, and we crowned Jaden Daniels. We all remember the month he had 80% completion. The Commanders are winning games, and it was like, oh my gosh, he's accurate. He can run. What can't he do? And it was Jaden Daniels, Rookie of the Year. And while it's fair to acknowledge and claim, yes, at the time of when those conversations were being had, he was clearly the best rookie in the NFL, or the, let's be honest, best quarterback. It's going to be so hard for a non-quarterback to ever win MVP or Offensive Rookie of the Year again. But he was playing the best as an offensive rookie. And so we just did, the media just said, all right, he's Rookie of the Year. And they almost just dropped it. And especially with the struggles, Caleb Williams had to start the season, and Bo Nix didn't have a touchdown pass. And it was, that's the Rookie of the Year. Now we're in phase 2. Because as things unfold and the season doesn't end after 5 games, what Jaden Daniels did, he was the September Rookie of the Year. But now we're in phase 2. Jaden got hurt, which is unfortunate. Only had the 6 yards last game. Only got a couple plays before he got knocked out. And now Caleb, who's been playing better, and the Bears are playing better, he's the front runner for Rookie of the Year. But now, again, we play more than 5 games, and we're going to play more in these next 4 or 5 games. Which, these next couple of games, and Caleb is a special player, super talent. I don't want to use the word generational. You guys know how I feel about that. But the reality of Caleb Williams playing this light schedule, meaning we are going to get a phase 3 of this Rookie of the Year race. We got the quick starter, who was Jaden Daniels. Caleb looks like right now he's going to be the middle stretch. He's going to be leading it. But once he starts having to really play, so the Bears' schedule, just for context, the Bears have coming up the Commanders, which was supposed to be him versus Jaden, but Jaden's hurt. Then they have the Cardinals. We just saw the Cardinals Chargers. The Cardinals do not have a good defense. I don't care what the score of that game was. And then the Patriots. And the Patriots are quite potentially the worst team in the NFL. But then they have the Packers. Then they have the Vikings. Then they have the Lions. Back to back to back. Now remember, this is how it was supposed to go. The NFL, when they did their schedule, and this is smart, they gave Caleb Williams, who was the guy who had all the fanfare coming out of college, was the generational pick, not my words, but just how they've described him. They gave him a really nice, easy way to start because they wanted to showcase the NFL can't afford, no sports league can afford this. They don't, we talked about this yesterday, how the product of the NFL is genuinely down in terms of quality of play. The NFL wants these guys to hit. Say what you want about any of the rookie quarterbacks. The NFL would love if all 6 hit. They would love if Penix hit, Nix hit, Caleb Williams, Drake May, Jaden Daniels. The better quarterback play is, the better the product. So they gave him a really easy schedule to start. Maybe they didn't care about Bo Nix. We'll get to that in a second. Goes Packers, Vikings, Lions, consecutive weeks, all division. Then you go Niners, Vikings again, Lions. Then you have the Seahawks, who let's see what their defense looks like at that point of the season. We've seen some really big ups and some really big downs. And then the Packers again. And so that late stretch of the season, is going to be the actual stretch where we determine Rookie of the Year, as it should be. The same way that's when we're really going to establish who's the MVP. I know Lamar right now has the MVP because he's played the best through the 5 games, but go back to last year, Lamar didn't really win the MVP in those first handful of games. He really won the MVP towards the end of the season when they blasted the Lions and blasted the 49ers. That's when he truly won the award. And so Caleb, who has all his toughest games coming up, versus, I'm wearing the orange, my guy, who's already played a lot of his hard games, has already been through a lot of his adversity. Bo Nix has a lighter schedule to end the year. Jaden's going to be kind of a weird spot because as great as Jaden has played, if he misses too much time due to this injury or he gets injured again, and if you look at his style of play, if you just look at his college tape, I mean, some of it just looks like Looney Tunes, him running around and getting blasted. So that's when this will actually determine. And Bo has already played a bunch of tough games. He already had to open in Seattle. He already had to go play those Steelers early in the season. He already had to go play in Tampa. He already had to go play in a monsoon against the Jets. So he's had a lot of these hard games already. So he's already there. Caleb is realistically, and again, it's not his fault. You can only play who's on your schedule. But where he really picked up a lot of this steam of momentum, Jaguars, Panthers, a really injured Rams team, that's when he really picked up and started playing like how he was supposed to be playing from day one as the number 1 overall pick. So has not truly played like his quote unquote tough games yet. Even his other soft game, the Titans, he was not great in that game. The defense won it for him. His best team he's played was the Texans. Sunday Night Football, he especially did not look good in that game. So he's got a bunch of tough games coming up. Bo Nix's schedule outside of the Chiefs is actually about to get easier. And again, Jaden Daniels is, due to his injury concern and history, we'll see where that ends up placing him. But this is why we don't crown stuff in the beginning of the year or when only 25% of the season is over. There's a lot more games to be played. There's a lot more stuff that has to happen. And so, again, I like all 3 quarterbacks. And I also hope, to be real honest with you, I hope Drake May has a great second half of the season because the sport is better with the more quality quarterbacks. No one wants to, with all due respect, watch Aiden O'Donnell play football. No one wants to. I know he just had an emotional moment. He just got re-signed. No one really wants to watch Desmond Ridder play football. We don't want, yes, you want your team to win. You're not going to feel bad if they blow other teams out. but we want more quality quarterbacks. We want more quality players. That's what makes the NFL great. And we all just have a sick obsession with seeing men hit each other at 20 miles an hour. Yeah. A lot more to come when we come back from the break. We do have power rankings to discuss, and how many NFL players are definitively have best in the world. I was arguing with somebody yesterday. Definitively have best in the world at their position locked down. This is HardFoul Radio. We'll be back momentarily. prime time standalone games. And while the London games are a little weird because they're not quite as prime time because not everybody gets up that early, especially for on the West Coast. It's up at 6:30 in the morning. So it's not quite as big as a Sunday night football, a Monday night football, these other primetime games. Unless you happen to coach for the one team whose owner is an ambassador overseas for the NFL, and your team comes out and looks, while the final score may not be indicative of it, did not play well, your quarterback looks old, threw 3 interceptions, and while your defense did actually do a pretty good job against the Minnesota Vikings, not winning that game. Again, when your owner is the ambassador for the NFL overseas, you're Robert Saleh, that's the kind of game that gets you fired. I also think whenever I play that Robert Saleh clip is that good coaching and great coaching, I think, is actually out there in an abundance that we haven't seen it before. I know a lot of people say like, oh, well, there's actually so much bad coaching. That's why you have all these bad teams. But the amount of, again, I can use my own experience a lot. The Broncos are drastically different right now because of great coaching from Sean Payton and Vance Joseph. The Vikings are drastically different because of great coaching by Kevin O'Connell and Brian Flores. We've seen the Dolphins with Mike McDaniel. I know there's been people trolling this year because the offense has not been good without Tua. And fine, yes, you need a quarterback. Cool. You have to have a starting quarterback to win and be productive in the NFL. I know, it's shocking. And, Andy Reid and Steve Spagnuolo, what they do in Kansas City, like there's genuinely such a premium there's actually a lot more great coaches than we think. Now, a lot of them right now are paired up. Again, I've been beating this point all season. Like Reid, Spagnuolo, Peyton, Joseph, Kevin O'Connell, Brian Flores. Like, look at the amount of great coaches that are paired up with each other and see the way their teams are performing. Also, and with coaching, we also know it's been very clear to us, and because coaching is such a resume thing, Bill was the best coach every year when he coached. It was just undisputed. Even those last couple years when he struggled, no one was ever willing to say, oh yeah, Bill is no longer a good head coach. Bill is no longer a great head coach. And a lot of people would have told you, myself included, even up until he's not retired, but this last stint with New England, his last few years, he was still the best head coach in the NFL because his resume was so overwhelming. That doesn't work with players. Players from one year to the next can totally drop off, and they might be the best in the league one year, and then they're not even top 5 the following year. There's just a lot more athletes, obviously a lot more players and coaches come into the league and what they're able to do, and they can push guys out of these spots. And I was having a conversation with someone, mini argument. How many players genuinely, because I think I got to 5, and then it was really hard, and the 5 you could even debate me on. If you're in the comment section right now, you let me know if you think my list is crazy or not. And this is debating who, as a guy who was unequivocally the best at his position. Mahomes, you still have to give it to him. Even though right now I've been championing Lamar and what he's been doing, Mahomes' resume currently is so overwhelming that we got to give him, he's the best quarterback. At running back, I couldn't find one. Because I would tell you right now, of course, it's Derrick Henry, but I would have told you coming into the season it was McCaffrey. Saquon's been playing like the top 5 pick that he was. I can't really choose a running back and say you're outright the best running back in the NFL. At receiver, it's Justin Jefferson. I don't think that's debatable. I know Jamar Chase has currently leading the league in receiving yards, and Jamar Chase is great, but Justin Jefferson is the best receiver in football. Look what he's doing with Sam Darnold. As more proof positive. Justin's really never had an elite quarterback. Kirk was really good, but he's never had that guy at the quarterback position, and look at the numbers he still puts up. So I got Mahomes at quarterback, and I have Justin Jefferson at receiver. At offensive line, I'm not going to go tackle to tackle. I'm just going to say as a whole, Trent Williams. Trent Williams is the best offensive lineman in the National Football League. And even with Trent, I do think there's an argument because of his age that Quentin Nelson, the guard for the Colts, And also a sneaky pick is Laramie Tunsil for the Texans. Like, again, Trent has an incredibly large body of work, and I believe in my heart that still puts him at 1, but he's my least strong. He's definitively the best. When it comes to pass rusher, I couldn't give you one, because I would tell you it's Myles Garrett or TJ Watt, or if you want to go interior, Chris Jones. Like, I could not give you a flat out, oh yeah, he is the best pass rusher in the NFL. At linebacker, I got Fred Warner. I think it's clear, even with all of the declines we've seen from San Francisco this year, Fred Warner has not declined. He is still playing at an all-pro level. Fred Warner is still fantastic. And yeah, I think he's just easily the best linebacker in the NFL. So I've got quarterback, I've got receiver, I have offensive lineman, and I got a linebacker. And then if I'm going at safety, I think there's a couple guys you could have in that list. Jesse Bates, Kyle Hamilton. I had Justin Simmons coming into this year. I haven't quite kept up with this production in Atlanta. But if you then, so I can't give you one for safety. And then if you go with corner, and this is the conversation that me and the person were having, I say it's Pat Surtain, and I don't particularly think it's close. I've really never thought it's close. I am the captain of the Sauce Gardner holds way more than he covers fan club, and I think Surtain is clearly the best corner in football. And I think that's it. So at corner, Surtain. At linebacker, Warner. Pass rusher, if you want to separate D&D tackle, fine, but I'm not really even willing to give that it's just outright Chris Jones. If you look at some of the other seasons, and I know Chris Jones has the Super Bowls and he's a part of the Chiefs, so that probably gives him the edge in most people's mind. I also have a thing where, I think you only really got that spot if you're going to give it to him because of the departure of Aaron Donald with an early retirement. At offensive line, Trent Williams, so that's 3. Jefferson at receiver, 4, and Mahomes at quarterback. We have 5 guys who are just unanimously considered the best at their position. And I thought it was an interesting conversation because, again, I just had this yesterday, and then I was also thinking of it as far as like comparing sports. We don't really do that. In baseball, all hitters kind of get grouped up, and so we say, oh, he's the best hitter in the game. Defensively, it's like, oh, he's the best glove in the game. We don't really break down the same way we do with that. And in the NBA, it's totally different because the NBA is an outright, oh, he's the best point guard, he's the best 2, he's the best small forward, he's the best power forward, he's the best center. It's very rare, it happens, but it's very rare we get stuck in these, well, he's just the best big, or he's just the best, we've all acknowledged the best player, which for football is generally the best quarterback. Basketball, it's been LeBron. In baseball, it's been Ohtani currently, Trout, Pujols, Miguel Cabrera, those kind of guys. But it was interesting to me. Again, sometimes I just get in my hood and in my own head, and it's kind of sports nerdy stuff. But it is definitively guys who we all consider to be the top or the best at their position. But you know what no one agrees on? And that is power rankings. No one will ever agree on this, and that's fine. It's not supposed to. The reality is, look, you're going to have 10 teams. I saw a couple over the last couple days. I have some that have, I saw one that didn't have the Houston Texans in the top 10. And that was wild to me. And I respect the person that I listen to, and I genuinely think their opinion is really good, really valid. I know they do a bunch of research, and I don't want to dismiss their opinion, but it was wild to me they didn't have the Houston Texans in the top 10. But nobody agrees on power rankings, and that's why we do them. They get the conversation started, and it's really funny because a lot of people normally don't argue about the top because we all pretty much know who the top couple of teams are, but we always argue at the bottom, so let's get the argument started. So coming in for our Step It, our Step It Staircase, our power rankings showcasing the best teams in the NFL entering Week 8. We have at number 10, I had to bring him back. I'm not convinced. Okay, look, they're 10-point favorites. They're almost 10-point favorites, if not 10-point favorites by the time this episode is over against the Carolina Panthers. That means, yes, we all know the Panthers are ass, but not everybody's been a 10-point favorite against the Carolina Panthers. This is proof. This is the best sack differential. Bo Nix has been sacked the least of any NFL quarterback. Denver has the second most sacks in the NFL. That's how you get to the highest sack differential. This defense is legit. It's the best defense in the NFL if you want to look at pressure rates, if you want to look at covers, the way that Moss, McMillan, PS2, the way they cover, the way this team gets pressure, Bo only getting better. They're starting to get some resemblance of a running game. Yes. Are they the deepest team at receiver and tight end? No. So they're not going to be super explosive. But if you take the entirety of the roster, this defense especially, the way they are trending, this is one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. And for those of you that are also rolling your eyes and going, oh my gosh, look at point differential. Denver is one of the handful of teams that has a plus 30 point differential. So, the Denver Broncos are in your top 10. Now, I also want to clear as I say this. I try with the best of my ability, not just make these a week-by-week kind of rankings, but these are the teams that I truly believe have a chance to be there towards the end of the year. So, it allows me, I don't want it to just be a snapshot, quote-unquote, of the season, but truly these are the teams that I feel like are the best in the NFL, which is why, even with a losing record, and I know I called them my hard left and I said I was wrong and I gave you a bunch of reasons to not believe in the 49ers again. I just can't honestly look in the camera and speak into the microphone and say the 49ers aren't one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. Is Ayuk out for the season with an ACL injury? Yes. Is Deebo Samuel hurt and now has an illness? Yes. Have they underperformed on defense? 1,000%. Am I here to tell you Brock Purdy is going to deliver them despite all the injuries and no Avengers? I can't, but I also can't tell you that I don't look at the San Francisco 49ers and think that's one of the best teams in football. I do think your record and how you're playing currently needs to matter, and that's valid. I say this about the Chiefs. How you're playing right now has to matter, but I just can't make a list and say they're not one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. Will's not here today, but at number 8 is the Chicago Bears. Now, here's my dilemma with Chicago. I do think Chicago was clearly a really good team. They clearly are, because the issue and the narrative around them, and I believe it, is that they're beating teams that aren't very good. Well, you know who beats teams that aren't very good? They're good teams. You know who beats teams by a lot? You know who beat the teams who aren't very good by a lot? The very good teams. So I have every reason to believe Chicago is a very good team. Caleb is going to get better. I believe he's going to keep improving. This defense is legit. They have weapons. There's something that Denver doesn't have. They have a really good receiver room. They've got a good tight end. They have a lot of pieces here. Now, I do want to see, and which is why I think they're kind of stuck in the back end of my top 10s, I do want to see when they start playing these division games, start playing the Packers, they start playing the Vikings, start playing the Lions. I do want to see where they actually stack up head-to-head, but I cannot not have them in one of the 10 best teams in the NFL. I do still think Minnesota's better, and I know I say this every week, but my issue with Minnesota, I love the receivers, I love the coaching staff, I love a lot of the defensive pieces, I love a lot of the offensive pieces. I love so much about this team that when they had they've been having these fake trade rumors about Matt Stafford over the last couple of days, or at least I'm calling them fake because a lot of credited reporters has called them fake. If the Minnesota Vikings had Matthew Stafford, they'd be one of the 4 best teams in the NFL. And that, to me, is why, with Sam Darnold as their quarterback, I can't put them any higher. Number 6 is Buffalo, and I feel like I'm the last person on the Buffalo is still a great team list, or great team camp. Buffalo, Josh Allen doesn't have a turnover this year. Everybody's been saying it's fluky, and everyone's been saying it's not going to happen, and they're not as explosive, this, that, and the third. They just got Amari Cooper. They just put up 30-plus points. Again, no turnovers for Josh Allen. I'm not saying that I think Lamar's having the best season of any quarterback. I think that's clear. But I also think Josh Allen has just figured it out. The game, when they always, that cliche of, the game moves slower now, I see it better. He is playing like the game is moving slower. He is performing like he understands it now. And I can't discredit that with a defensive head coach who is still, like, that defense, despite all of its injuries, is still playing well. Again, they just went out and got Amari Cooper, which is one of a lot of people's big issues with them, is that they did not have a number one wide receiver. Now they have one. And Amari Cooper is going to run routes, the cleanest routes you will ever see. And he's going to be super motivated because he just went from the shit show in Cleveland to now in Buffalo with Josh Allen, who, again, it just looks like he's figured it out at the quarterback position. So Buffalo, they're right outside my great teams in the NFL at number 6. Number 5 is the Green Bay Packers. And I haven't given this team a lot of credit, and I think this is a head choice, not a gut choice. I'm still not quite sold on Jordan Love despite what I've seen. There's things that I love. There's things that I don't love. He throws a lot of touchdowns. He also throws a lot of interceptions and a lot of could-be interceptions. That makes me nervous as far as them going long-term, but I think their explosive ability, I think the coaching here, I think the maturation and the continued success and continued growth of Jordan Love is going to be huge for this team. There's a lot here that I like, but yeah, would I say that they are outright? Again, they're kind of with the Bills for me, but they're more explosive and more naturally talented than the Bills are. They're not as clean or as, they're not quite as buttoned up as I feel Buffalo is. And part of that is just having the younger quarterback. But Green Bay has a lot of talent. You can't deny that. They are my number 5 team. Again, this is more so with my gut says they're not quite this good, but I'm going to go with it. How do people... I get it, and Green Bay beat Houston, and I know C.J. Stroud threw for 80-something yards this weekend, but my rule is I don't let one bad game destroy someone's opinion, my opinion of someone in my head, especially because, again, these aren't just snapshots of the regular season. These are genuinely the teams that I think are the best in the NFL. And, again, I saw someone who I really respect, I enjoy watching, I've watched for years. They didn't have the Houston Texans in the top 10, and that's wild to me. C.J. Stroud, DeMeco Ryans, yes, has this offense struggled since Nico Collins was gone? 1,000%. But Nico is not out for the year, and so if you have Houston Texans stock, I will take it. I would love it. I will buy all of it. Give it to me. I still think this team, coming into the season, I thought this team was only behind a Kansas City or Cincinnati or Buffalo. Cincinnati is obviously totally disappointed, but this is still, in my opinion, I don't really care about the C.J. Stroud stats because I didn't think he was going to come in here and only throw 4 or 5 interceptions again. Some of that is an anomaly, but the non-anomaly stuff is he's accurate, he's consistent, he is a great leader, and when they get Nico Collins back and Joe Mixon is running and C.J. Stroud is throwing the ball, this is one of the best teams in football. DeMeco Ryans, love him as a head coach. So there's so much I love about this team. But I will say, I do think there is a gap. So I've been talking about quality of play and how many teams are actually like great teams or really good teams. And I think the Texans are a really good team, but I think they're really good. The Texans, the Packers, and the Bills, I think are all really good teams. Then there's a gap. I think the next 4 are just good teams, even though the Niners, again, it's hard for me to really work that one out of my system. And then the next 3, which I think there's a gap. These are the only great teams in the NFL. The Detroit Lions. I think in almost any other year, I would say the Detroit Lions are clearly 1 or 2. They would be so, and they are the easy favorite to represent the NFC. They are the best team in the best division in football. It's incredible. Jared Goff, look what he's done his last 4 games. Look what he's done just in his time in Detroit. That offense, the culture and what they've established in Detroit is special. There's no denying that. What they can do offensively, yes, is the Aiden Hutchinson injury, is it devastating? Because this feels like genuinely maybe the best chance they've ever had to win a title in the history of the Detroit Lions. But I'm not taking away from what Goff's done, from what Dan Campbell's done with this team, their running game, their offensive line. This is Tony said there's no dominant team in the NFL, and I tend to agree with him, but they look dominant when they're doing really well. Oh, I made a mistake. So we have the Baltimore Ravens at number 2, but I'm going to be honest with you, because obviously that means Kansas City is here. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't think the Chiefs are this good no more. I've been saying this, and while I'm not willing to put them below a team like Houston, if you ask me, Baltimore, who is currently playing like the best team in the NFL, this is why we step it up. The Lions have been stepping up. The Kansas City Chiefs have been stepping down. If you ask me today, and you ask me who I feel as I've watched football over the course of this entire season, the number 1 team in the NFL is the Baltimore Ravens. They are out rushing teams by 150 yards. Imagine what's going to happen when the weather gets cold and you got to make a decision. Do I want to tackle Derrick Henry, 6'2", 230, running downhill? Imagine if the New York Giants, this is a game, the Baltimore Ravens are going to play the New York Giants. It's going to be cold, and imagine what a Giants team who's probably going to be out of it, and our guys are going to really want to tackle Derrick Henry in the fourth quarter. That's a game genuinely look out. He might break the NFL single game rushing record. But easily, the Chiefs have underperformed. The Chiefs' offense is not what it was. This is who the top 10 teams are in the NFL. This has been stepping up. With that being said, we're going to take a quick break. When we come back, we're going to have some closing statements. And we are back to close it out. I just was looking during the break, and I just got you guys, and I know we're gonna do Bet of the Week on Sunday when we fill out Tony's ticket. But I just saw one. If you're one of those people that believe in trends, and I am. I love trends. I love stats. I love all that stuff. There is a trend that is happening this year, and it happens every year. But it's the team that after you play them, you lose. Now, the Niners have been this team for years. Teams after playing the Niners had a horrible record because part of it is the physicality. They beat you up. It's just a much more physical game, and so it's hard to recover. It's also usually because you get up for those kind of games as a team. You're more inspired or more excited to play a team like the 49ers. And so you're getting up, you're emotional, you have these trick plays, you got a new game plan, you are treating it like a mini Super Bowl. The Detroit Lions have been that team this year. Teams that have played the Lions, all of them have lost the following week. The only exception was the Dallas Cowboys. They were on a bye. So the Minnesota Vikings just played the Detroit Lions, played them close, 2-point game. Super fun, super exciting, great game to watch. And now, on a short week, the Vikings, who are -3, the 3-point favorites, going to the Los Angeles Rams. Short week, you just played the Lions, and you're going up against Sean McVay, who basically has his season on the line. So whatever plays he's got that he's been saving and stashing away to use for a later point, now they all come out because he doesn't have much more time. He is going to use everything to his advantage that he can find. And again, teams playing the Lions, coming off that win, have all struggled. We'll see what the Cowboys do with the bye week in between. But all these teams have lost the following week after playing the Lions. And now you have Sean McVay, one of the most clever play callers in the NFL, and Matthew Stafford, one of the best, despite his age, one of the best quarterbacks in the NFL. And you're getting 3 points with them on a short week for a team that just played the Lions? Sounds pretty good. I know it's not my bet of the week, but if I was a betting man, it's hard to do Thursday Night Football with us just because the way that we get the episodes out. But +3, I get the better head coach, still in my opinion. It's close, but the better head coach. I get the better quarterback, not close. Both of us coming off a short week, and you just played one of the most physical football games you're going to play all year against the Detroit Lions. Yeah. My money, go all in on the LA Rams tomorrow. With that being said, appreciate you guys, as always, for stopping by. We got more people. Don't forget to go check out the video. We got 2 more dropping. 2 videos drop every single day we record, and we will see you guys on Sunday. Have a wonderful day. God bless.